Former Dilworth music teacher Leonard Cave was found guilty of sexually abusing his students across 4 decades at the school and at St Paul's Collegiate in Hamilton. Cave is believed to be one of at least 30 abusers who's been accused of historic sexual offending at Dilworth, a school which prides itself on providing high-end education to boys from broken homes. Joining us now is a survivor of sexual abuse at the school, Neil Harding. Morena, Neil, thank you very much for being with us. Your abuser, Ian Wilson, a former scoutmaster and assistant principal, was sentenced for his crimes last year. Do you feel you got justice?
Look, the sentencing is always an issue when you're looking at historic abuse. It's sort of no amount of jail time seems adequate. For me, I was fortunate that one of my offenders pled guilty. You know, it was very, very hard over the last week or so listening to the survivors, the way that they were managed and handled in terms of being asked if they were, asserted that they were making it up. Defence counsel sort of saying to one survivor that just because he'd had a university degree, is that the success story of someone who's been sexually abused? So those survivors to be put through that was I just don't know how our justice system would allow a defence lawyer to say something like that.
I just can't believe that people even think like that. And just bearing in mind as well, I suppose that everyone's experiences will be different, but based on yours, can you give me a bit of a sense of what survivors of Leonard Cave's abuse will be going through now?
I don't know. I lead a class action of 130 survivors. Being a survivor myself, the legal team have put in boundaries, so I don't actually know who the survivors are. I haven't spoken to the survivors of Leonard Cave, bearing in mind that he was my choir master when I was at school at Dilworth. He did invite me to play charades at his house one night with a couple of other boys. So fortunately I left the school after only 2 years because who knows what may have happened to me with him. For me, I got a sense of elation. I was buzzing when I heard the guilty verdicts.
Yeah,
and I can only imagine that they would have felt something similar given what they'd had to experience through cross-examination.
Exactly, and how long it's been as well since the abuse, having to kind of live with that trauma and then have to relive it through the trial. Twice Cave's abuse was reported to the school. Twice he was allowed to quietly resign. Nothing referred to police. No action taken. To your mind, how much did Dilworth perpetuate that abuse?
Well, this is the big story of Dilworth. We talk about 30 pedophiles. We talk about the historic abuse. The biggest story is the fact that Dilworth already knew, and this came out through the trial, that the school had been informed that boys had gone and reported their abuse. And Dilworth, to this day, we just want the truth as to what they knew and what happened, but they will not come forward and acknowledge that the school had any part to play in what happened. And the evidence that we have is overwhelming that Dilworth knew time and time and time again. And for me, it was absolutely gutting when I discovered that boys before me had reported abuse about some of my abusers and nothing was done, and that I was needlessly abused, as were I don't know how many of our 130 and those who have not yet come forward. But we're talking about hundreds of boys over a 40-year period. And I think the context of Dilworth is really important. You know, the first thing that happened when we arrived, when I arrived when I was 11, was hammered into us the code of silence.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a big boy on little boy thing, but it seems it was driven, from what I can see now, it was driven by the trust board and senior management that the code of silence was an important part of the school's culture, and it perpetuated their ability to cover up sexual abuse in ways that are horrific.
Do you worry as well, and I certainly do, Neil, that Dilworth it's saying it's going to conduct this independent inquiry. It still hasn't finalised what that will look like, and until the inquiry is complete, it's not commenting on anything to do with the abuse at the school. So is it using that inquiry as a smokescreen? Is it not changed that culture that you're talking about?
Listen, I have been engaging with the Trust Board for 4 years collaboratively. Dilworth they're only doing things when they're backed into a corner and have got nothing else to do. And as soon as they announce something, they want to give themselves a standing ovation and pat themselves on the back. They're putting. There was plenty of opportunity. They know so much of what's happened. We've presented to them so much evidence of what's happened. Instead of doing their own inquiry and being upfront about it themselves, there is this process of going through an independent inquiry. But alongside that is their proposed redress program. And that's the big one that we have major issues with, is that they are looking to unilaterally decide on the people that are going to undergo a redress process that they're controlling, that is flawed, that does not... They refuse to meet for us to make it survivor-focused. It doesn't fit international best practice. They are determining the value of old boys of survivors, and they're controlling a redress process that is fundamentally flawed.
Unacceptable. Hey Neil, thank you very much for your time and for your work for all of those survivors of abuse at Dilworth. That's Neil Harding, a survivor of sexual abuse at the school.